Jake Morrison floated near the main window of the ship, watching the strange new star system spread out before them. 3 months they had been traveling through space, farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. The ship hummed quietly around him as his crew worked at their stations. "Captain, I'm picking up something weird on the sensors," said Ashley Brown from her seat at the communications panel. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Jake pushed himself away from the window and drifted over to look at her screen. "What kind of weird?" "There's a ship out there, big one, and it's not like anything we've ever built." Ashley's voice carried a mix of excitement and worry. "The metal readings are all wrong. It's like the whole thing is made of crystal or something. Doctor..." Lisa Parker looked up from her medical equipment. "Are you sure it's a ship? Could be some kind of natural formation." Tony Rodriguez laughed from the engine controls. "Natural formations don't move in perfect straight lines, Doc. That thing is definitely artificial." Jake felt his heartbeat faster. This was it. The moment every human had dreamed about since they first looked up at the stars. First contact with aliens. He tried to keep his voice steady. "Ashley, can you send them a basic greeting signal?" "Already trying, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies." Ashley adjusted her headset. "Wait. Something's happening. They're responding." The main screen flickered and suddenly showed the inside of another ship. Jake had to blink several times to make sense of what he was seeing. Tall figures stood in front of the camera, but they didn't look like anything from Earth. Their bodies seemed to be made of some kind of clear, crystalline material that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. When they moved, it was like watching living glass. One of the aliens stepped forward and made sounds that were unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was like listening to wind chimes mixed with the sound of ice cracking. "Ashley, are you getting any of this translated?" "The computer is trying, Captain. It's actually working. Listen to this." The alien's voice came through the speakers, now speaking clear English with a strange musical quality. "Greetings, small soft ones. We are the Kethari. We have traveled far to study new forms of life. You interest us greatly." Jake stepped in front of the camera. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship Stellar Dawn. We come in peace. We're explorers just like you." The alien's head tilted in what might have been curiosity. "Soft ones from the third planet. We have observed your world from a distance. You build with metal and fire. Most unusual. We would like to meet you in person to learn more about your kind." "We'd be honored," Jake replied. "Where would you like to meet?" "Our ship has docking capabilities. We will extend a connection tunnel. Please bring your healing specialists. We are curious about how soft-bodied creatures maintain their forms." An hour later, Jake found himself walking through a tunnel made of the same crystal material as the alien ship. The walls were smooth and perfectly clear, giving him a view of the stars on all sides. Behind him walked Dr. Lisa Parker, Tony Rodriguez, and Ashley Brown. Each of them carried translation devices and sample containers. The airlock opened into a room that took Jake's breath away. Everything was made of crystal, but it wasn't cold, like he expected. The walls pulsed with soft, warm light, and the air smelled like rain on summer flowers. 3 Kethari waited for them. Up close, Jake could see that their crystal bodies were incredibly detailed. Patterns of light moved through them like slow lightning, and their faces, while alien, somehow conveyed intelligence and curiosity. "Welcome aboard our vessel," said the lead alien. "I am Fleet Commander Zixthul. These are my science advisors, Dr. Velnan and researcher Kixara." The meeting started well. The Kethari showed them around their ship, explaining how their crystal technology worked. The humans shared pictures and videos of Earth, describing their cities and cultures. Dr. Lisa Parker was particularly fascinated by how the Kethari bodies could heal themselves. When she asked for a demonstration, Dr. Velnan casually scratched a deep groove in his arm with a crystal tool. Jake watched in amazement as the scratch filled itself in with new crystal material. Within minutes, there was no sign of damage at all. "Remarkable," Dr. Parker said. "Complete regeneration. How long does it take for major injuries?" "For something like a severed limb, perhaps half of your day," Dr. Velnan replied. All intelligent life regenerates, of course. It is the most basic requirement for survival. That's when the trouble started. Actually, Dr. Parker said, humans don't regenerate like that. When we're injured, we form scar tissue. The wound heals, but it leaves a permanent mark. The three Cathari suddenly went very still. The light patterns in their bodies changed from the soft, warm colors they had been showing to harsh, rapid flashes. This is not possible, Fleet Commander Zixthul said. Life cannot continue with accumulated damage. You would become weaker with each injury until you died. That's not how it works for us, Jake said, sensing the growing tension. We adapt. We learn from our injuries. They make us more careful, sometimes stronger. No, Dr. Velnan said, his voice becoming sharp. This is wrong. This is broken. You are broken creatures. Tony Rodriguez stepped forward. Hey now, that's not very friendly. Broken things should not exist, researcher Kixara said. Broken. Things spread their brokenness to others. This is why we cleanse the galaxy of imperfection. Jake felt a cold chill run down his spine. Cleanse? Fleet Commander Zixthul raised his arm, and Jake saw that it was changing shape, forming into something that looked very much like a weapon. We cannot allow broken life to contaminate the perfection of the universe. You will be destroyed, and your world will be purified. Run, Jake shouted to his crew. The next few seconds were chaos. Crystal weapons fired beams of superheated plasma. Jake pushed Dr. Parker behind a crystal pillar, just as a beam scorched the air where she had been standing. Tony Rodriguez grabbed Ashley, Brown and Dove for the tunnel entrance. Jake felt incredible heat across his chest and arms as another plasma beam caught him. The pain was like nothing he had ever experienced. His shirt burned away, and he could smell his own flesh cooking. But instead of falling down, instead of giving up, Jake felt something else rising inside him. Anger. Pure, burning anger. He grabbed a crystal tool from a nearby table and charged at Fleet Commander Zixthul. The alien was so shocked by this reaction that he didn't fire again until Jake was almost on top of him. The second plasma beam hit Jake in the shoulder, spinning him around, but he kept moving. Impossible, the Fleet Commander said. You should be unconscious from shock. Jake slammed the crystal tool into the alien's arm, cracking the crystal surface. You want to kill my crew? You want to destroy my world? His voice was getting louder, more fierce. You're going to have to do a lot better than that. The Cathari stared in horror as Jake's burned skin began to change. It wasn't healing, not the way theirs did. Instead, it was forming tough, dark patches. The human was becoming scarred, marked, damaged. And somehow, he was still fighting. More Cathari soldiers entered the room. Jake knew he couldn't win, but he also knew he couldn't stop. His crew needed time to get back to their ship. His world needed someone to warn them. So he kept fighting, his burned skin growing angrier and tougher with each passing moment, while the aliens watched in growing fear at this creature that refused to simply die when broken. Jake woke up in a cage made of crystal bars. His whole body felt like it was on fire. The burns on his chest and arms had turned into angry red patches that pulled tight when he moved. But he was alive, and that was more than the aliens had expected. Captain? Dr. Lisa Parker's voice came from the cage next to his. She had a nasty cut across her forehead that had dried into a dark scab. Are you okay? Been better, Jake said, trying to sit up. The movement sent waves of pain through his body, but he pushed through it. Tony, Ashley? We're here, Tony Rodriguez called from across the room. His left arm was in a makeshift sling that Ashley had made from torn fabric. They got us before we could reach the ship. Jake looked around their prison. The room was made of the same crystal material as the rest of the alien ship, but this time the walls were thick and dark. No warm light patterns here, just cold, hard surfaces that reminded them they were prisoners. How long have we been here? Jake asked. 3 days, Dr. Parker replied. They've been coming to stare at us every few hours. I think we're some kind of experiment now. As if her words had summoned them, the crystal door opened with a sound like breaking glass. 3 Cathari entered, led by the scientist they had met before, Dr. Velnan. Behind him came two others that Jake didn't recognize. Dr. Velnan approached Jake's cage, his crystal body pulsing with curious patterns of light. "You continue to exist," he said in his musical voice. "This should not be possible." "Sorry to disappoint you," Jake said, getting to his feet despite the pain. The alien took a step back as Jake moved closer to the bars. "Fascinating," Dr. Velnan said. "Your injury responses are completely wrong. Look at your skin. It has not returned to its original state. Instead, it has become darker, thicker, and yet you seem to function normally." "Better than normal," Jake said, surprised to find this was true. The anger he had felt during the fight was still there, burning steady and bright. It made him feel stronger somehow, more focused. One of the other aliens, a smaller one with very bright light patterns, stepped forward. "I am Researcher Thixol. We have been studying your species' biology. We do not understand how you survive with permanent damage." Dr. Parker stood up in her cage. "It's called adaptation. Our bodies learn from injuries. The scar tissue that forms is often stronger than the original skin." "Impossible," Dr. Velnan said. "Scar tissue is dead material. It cannot be stronger than living flesh." "Want to test that theory?" Jake asked, holding up his burned arm. The new skin was dark and tough, like leather. "Go ahead and try to cut through it." The aliens looked at each other with what might have been confusion. Their light patterns flickered rapidly as they communicated in their own language. "There is more," Researcher Thixol said. "We have observed your behavior. You do not become weaker as we expected. Instead, you become more aggressive, more dangerous. This makes no sense." Tony Rodriguez laughed from his cage. "You never met humans before, have you? We don't like being pushed around." "But you are damaged," Dr. Velnan insisted. "Damaged creatures should be submissive. They should accept their fate. You continue to resist even though resistance is pointless." "Pointless?" Jake moved closer, to the bars again. The alien stepped back further. "You want to kill my crew. You want to destroy my world. And you think I'm just going to sit here quietly?" "Your world will be cleansed," the third alien said. This one was larger than the others with darker crystal formations. "We have sent word to the fleet. They will arrive soon to purify your system." Ashley Brown spoke up for the first time. "How many ships?" "Enough," the large alien replied. "Your broken species will not spread its corruption to other worlds." Jake felt that burning anger grow stronger. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "What mistake?" Dr. Velnan asked. "You kept us alive. You wanted to study us." Jake's voice was getting harder, more dangerous. "That means you don't understand us at all. And that means you're not ready for what's coming." The aliens looked confused. "What is coming?" Dr. Parker smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression despite the cut on her forehead. "Other humans, they'll come looking for us." "Impossible," Researcher Thixol said. "Your ship was destroyed. There is no way for them to find you." "You really don't know anything about humans, do you?" Tony said. "We sent a distress signal before you captured us. Standard procedure." Jake watched the aliens' light patterns change to rapid, nervous flickers. "And when they get here, they're going to find out what you did to us, what you're planning to do to Earth." "Your people will be afraid," the large alien said, but he didn't sound as confident as before. "They will see our superior technology and surrender." "No," Jake said, and his voice carried absolute certainty. "They'll see what you did to us. They'll see our injuries, our scars, and they'll know exactly what kind of enemy they're dealing with." Dr. Velnan leaned closer to Jake's cage. "You speak as if scars are weapons." "They are," Dr. Parker said. "Every scar tells a story. Every injury we survive makes us stronger. Not physically stronger necessarily, but mentally stronger. We learn. We adapt. We remember." "Remember what?" Researcher Thixol asked. "We remember who hurt us," Jake said. "And we remember that we survived it." The aliens spent the next hour asking questions about human biology and psychology. They seemed particularly interested in how humans dealt with pain and permanent injury. Jake and his crew answered some questions and ignored others, but Jake could see that the aliens were getting more worried with each answer. "You are saying that your species becomes more dangerous when injured?" Dr. Velnan asked. "Not just more dangerous," Ashley said. "More determined, more angry, more willing to take risks." "This is not logical," the large alien said. "Injured creatures should be cautious. They should hide and heal." "We can't heal like you can," Jake said, "so we do something else instead." "What?" Jake looked at the burns on his arms, at the tough new skin that was forming. "We get even." The aliens left after that, their light patterns flickering with what looked like concern. Jake and his crew were alone again, but something had changed. The aliens were starting to understand that they had made a very big mistake. "Captain," Dr. Parker said quietly, "do you really think our people will come for us?" Jake touched the scars on his chest. They were still painful, but they reminded him of something important. He had survived the aliens' weapons. He had kept fighting when they expected him to fall down. And somewhere out there, other humans were learning about this new enemy. "They'll come," he said. "And when they do, these aliens are going to learn something new about scars." "What's that?" "Sometimes the best armor is the kind that shows everyone exactly how hard you are to kill." Admiral Steve Collins stood on the bridge of the battleship Iron Resolve, staring at the screen that showed the enemy fleet. 12 Cathari ships hung in space like giant crystal spiders, their surfaces gleaming with deadly beauty. Behind him, Captain Maria Santos checked her weapon systems one more time. "How long since we lost contact with the Stellar Dawn?" Steve asked. 6 days, sir," Maria replied. "The distress signal was clear. They made contact with aliens, then everything went silent." Steve touched the long scar that ran from his left ear to his jaw. He had gotten it 20 years ago in a mining accident on Mars. The doctors had offered to remove it with plastic surgery, but he had kept it. Now he was glad he had. "Signal the fleet," he said. "All ships, prepare to engage. Remember, our people are somewhere in there." The first Cathari vessel moved toward them, its crystal hull shining with threatening light patterns. Steve had read the reports about these aliens. They could heal any wound, regenerate any lost body part. They thought humans were broken because they couldn't do the same. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Incoming transmission from the lead alien ship," the communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." The image of Fleet Commander Zixthal appeared, his crystal body pulsing with confident colors. "Soft creatures from the third world, you have come to die. We have already captured your scouts. They are interesting specimens, but ultimately flawed. You should surrender now and accept cleansing." Steve stepped forward. "This is Admiral Steve Collins of the Earth Defense Force. You are holding our people prisoner. Return them immediately or we will take them back by force." "Impossible," Zixthal replied. "Your people are broken, permanently damaged. They cannot be repaired, so they must be destroyed. As must you." "You want to see broken?" Steve said, pointing to his scar. "This is what broken looks like to you. To us, it's proof we don't give up." The alien seemed confused by this response. "You display your damage proudly? This is madness." "No," Steve said. "This is human." The battle began with a massive exchange of energy weapons. The Cathari ships fired beams of superheated plasma that could melt through steel. The human ships responded with kinetic rounds and fusion missiles. The space between the fleets lit up like a deadly light show. Captain Maria Santos commanded the Iron Resolve's weapon systems. She had scars on both arms from a reactor explosion 3 years ago. The doctors had saved her life, but the burns had left permanent marks. She wore short sleeves to make sure everyone could see them. "Target their lead ship," she ordered. "All batteries full power." The Iron Resolve's main gun spoke with thunder. Solid tungsten rounds traveling at a significant fraction of light speed slammed into the Cathari vessel. The crystal hull cracked and shattered, but within minutes the damage was healing itself. "They're regenerating," the weapons officer reported. "Direct hits, but they're fixing themselves." "Then we'll just have to hit them harder," Maria said. On the human ship, Defiant, Sergeant Danny Wright led a boarding party toward a damaged Cathari vessel. Danny's face was a map of old battles. Shrapnel scars from the Luna Wars covered his left cheek. Burn marks from a plasma conduit failure on his right temple. A long, straight line across his forehead from a knife fight in the asteroid belt. The Cathari who saw him through their ship's cameras recoiled in horror. How could a creature so obviously damaged still be functioning? Still be fighting? Breach the hull, Danny ordered his team. Remember, we're here to get our people back. Corporal Katie Murphy nodded and set the explosive charges. She had her own collection of scars. A missing finger from a training accident. Chemical burns on her neck from a reactor leak. A twisted ankle that had never healed quite right and still hurt when it rained. The charges exploded and the boarding party rushed through the hole in the crystal hull. The Cathari defenders were waiting for them, but they made a fatal mistake. They expected the humans to be cautious, to protect themselves from further injury. Instead, Danny Wright charged straight at the enemy weapons, his scarred face twisted with determination. A plasma beam caught him in the shoulder, burning through his armor and flesh. Instead of falling back, he roared with anger and kept coming. The Cathari soldier who had shot him stood frozen in shock. The beam should have disabled any living creature. Instead, this scarred human was getting more aggressive, more dangerous. Katie Murphy flanked the aliens while they were distracted by Danny's charge. She had learned long ago that pain was just another piece of information. Her twisted ankle sent signals to her brain with every step, but she ignored them. She had bigger problems to worry about. The fight was short, but brutal. The Cathari were skilled warriors, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Humans who absorbed damage and kept fighting. Humans who seemed to draw strength from their wounds. Meanwhile, in the prison section of the research vessel, Jake Morrison and his crew heard the sounds of battle. Explosions echoed through the crystal corridors. Emergency lights flashed in colors that hurt human eyes. "That's our people," Jake said, feeling a fierce satisfaction. "I told you they'd come." Dr. Velnan appeared at their cage, his light patterns flickering with panic. "This is impossible. Your people should be afraid of our superior technology. They should surrender when they see how outmatched they are." "You still don't get it," Dr. Lisa Parker said. "Look at us. Really look at us." The alien scientist studied the humans more carefully. Jake's burns had formed thick, dark scars across his chest and arms. Lisa's head wound had healed into a jagged line across her forehead. Tony's arm was still in a sling, but he was using it anyway. Ashley had bruises that were turning interesting colors. "You are all damaged," Dr. Velnan said, "permanently marked. How can you be stronger than when we first captured you?" "Because we survived," Jake said. "Every scar is proof that we don't break easily. Every wound that heals wrong is evidence that we adapt. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be tougher than whatever is trying to kill us." The sounds of fighting were getting closer. Human voices shouting orders. The distinctive crack of kinetic weapons. The smell of burned crystal and human sweat. "Your people are dying out there," Dr. Velnan said. "We can see their life signs. They are being injured, scarred, damaged permanently." "Good," Jake said, and his voice was cold as space. "That means they're learning. Every hit they take, every wound they suffer, it's teaching them how to fight you better, how to hurt you more." The alien scientist backed away from the cage. "This is madness. Creatures should avoid injury, not welcome it." "We don't welcome it," Ashley said. "We just don't let it stop us." The crystal door exploded inward, and Sergeant Danny Wright stepped through the smoke and debris. His shoulder was bandaged, but his rifle was steady. Behind him came Katie Murphy and the rest of the boarding party. "United States Marines," Danny announced. "We're here to bring you home." Jake looked at the fresh scars on the Marines' faces and arms, battle damage from the fight to reach them. Each mark was a story of determination and courage. "About time," Jake said. Dr. Velnan stared at the rescue team in growing horror. More damaged humans, more creatures that should be weak but were somehow terrifying. "How many of you are there?" Danny Wright smiled, and the expression was made more frightening by the scars that crossed his face. "Enough." And every single one of us has survived things that should have killed us. The Marine sergeant looked at the alien scientist with cold eyes. Want to see what that looks like? The battle in space was getting worse. Lieutenant Commander Alex Thompson stood on the bridge of the destroyer Vengeance, watching 3 Cathari ships surround his vessel. His ship was badly damaged. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Life support failing in the rear sections. Half his crew was injured, and Alex had never felt more dangerous in his life. "Sir, they're charging some kind of superweapon," his tactical officer reported. The young man had a fresh burn across his cheek from an exploded console. "Energy readings are off the charts." Alex touched the old knife scar on his neck. He had gotten it in a bar fight on Europa Station 10 years ago. Back then, he thought it made him look tough. Now he knew it meant something more important. It meant he was still alive when he should have been dead. "All hands, prepare for impact," he announced over the ship's communication system. "This is going to hurt." The Cathari superweapon fired. A beam of pure energy that could have melted a small moon struck the Vengeance dead center. The ship shook like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Explosions echoed through the corridors. Emergency lights flickered and died. When the shaking stopped, Alex was still standing. Blood ran down his face from a new cut above his eye. His left arm hung at a strange angle, but his mind was clearer than it had ever been. "Damage report," he called out. "Sir, we've lost main power. Weapons are offline. We're running on emergency. Backup only." The tactical officer tried to stand but fell back into his chair. "We should surrender." "No," Alex said, and his voice was perfectly calm. "We fight." "With what?" "We don't have any working weapons." Alex smiled, and the expression was made fierce by the blood on his face. "We have the ship itself. All power to engines. Ram the nearest enemy vessel." The crew stared at him in shock. This was suicide. This was insane. This was exactly what humans did when they were pushed too far. The Vengeance lurched forward on emergency power, heading straight for the closest Cathari ship. The aliens were so surprised that they didn't fire until the human destroyer was almost on top of them. Alex felt the ship shake as more enemy weapons hit them. Each impact should have made him more careful, more afraid. Instead, he felt that strange human response that the aliens couldn't understand. The more they hurt him, the angrier he got. The angrier he got, the more focused he became. "Sir, collision in 30 seconds, the helmsman reported. She had glass cuts all over her hands from her broken control panel, but she kept flying the ship. "Good," Alex said. "Make it count." The Vengeance struck the Cathari vessel at full speed. The crystal hull shattered like breaking glass. Both ships tumbled through space, locked together in a deadly embrace. Explosions lit up the darkness as systems failed, and atmosphere vented into space. Alex woke up floating in the ruined bridge. His right leg was definitely broken. New cuts covered his face and hands. But he was alive, and the enemy ship was dark and silent. "Anyone else breathing?" he called out. Voices answered from around the bridge. Injured voices, but human voices. His crew was still alive, still fighting. On the Cathari research vessel, Dr. Velnan watched the battle through his ship's sensors. What he saw made no sense. The human ships were taking terrible damage, but instead of retreating, they were fighting harder. More desperately, more effectively. "This cannot be correct," he said to his assistant. "Show me the human life signs again." The display showed the humans aboard their damaged ships. Every single one showed signs of recent injury, broken bones, cuts, burns, internal bleeding. By Cathari standards, they should all be unconscious or dead. Instead, they were performing better than when the battle started. "There." Dr. Velnan pointed to a human signal aboard the destroyer that had just rammed his colleague's ship. "That creature has multiple severe injuries. How is it still giving orders to its crew?" Jake Morrison, now free from his cage thanks to the Marine rescue team, looked over the alien scientist's shoulder at the display. "That's Lieutenant Commander Alex Thompson. Good man, tough fighter." "Tough?" Dr. Velnan spun to face the human captain. "It is dying. Multiple trauma, significant blood loss, possible brain injury. It should be incapacitated." "Should be," Jake Agreed. But Alex has been through worse before. See that old scar on his neck? He got that in a knife fight. The one on his hands? Chemical burns from a reactor accident. Each one taught him something about surviving when things go bad. I do not understand, Dr. Velnan said. How does accumulating damage make a creature more effective? Dr. Lisa Parker joined the conversation. She had been treating the wounded Marines who had rescued them. It's psychological as much as physical. When humans are badly injured, especially in combat, our bodies release chemicals that increase focus and reduce the sensation of pain. We call it the rage protocol. Rage protocol? When we're hurt, really hurt, we don't get weaker, Lisa explained. We get more dangerous, more focused, more willing to take risks that would normally seem insane. On the main screen, they watched, as Alex Thompson's crippled destroyer somehow managed to fire one last missile at another Cathari ship. The weapon shouldn't have worked with so much damage to the ship's systems, but human engineering was designed to keep functioning even when everything went wrong. Your people are dying, Dr. Velnan insisted. The battle is destroying them. No, Jake said. The battle is teaching them. Every hit they take, every wound they survive, it's information. Data about how to fight you better next time. Sergeant Danny Wright, his fresh shoulder wound bandaged but still seeping blood, joined the group watching the battle. Doc, you want to know the real difference between us and you? What difference? You heal perfectly. Every injury disappears, like it never happened. So you never learn from getting hurt. Danny pointed to his scarred face. Every mark on my body is a lesson. Don't grab the wrong end of a knife. Don't stand too close to exploding grenades. Don't trust your equipment to work when you need it most. And the lesson from today? Dr. Velnan asked. Danny's smile was cold and hard. Don't mess with humans and expect them to stay down. The battle was turning. The Cathari had superior technology and perfect regeneration, but they had never faced an enemy that got more dangerous with each wound. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Human crews that should have been dead kept finding new ways to hurt their enemies. Admiral Steve Collins, his flagship badly damaged but still fighting, opened a communication channel to the Cathari fleet commander. This is your last chance, Steve said. His voice was rough from breathing smoke and fresh blood stained his uniform. Surrender now, or we keep teaching you lessons about human stubbornness. Fleet Commander Zix Thule appeared on screen. For the first time, his crystal body showed colors that looked like fear. Your people are broken, damaged beyond repair. How are you still fighting? Steve touched his old Mars mining scar. Because broken things don't always stay broken. Sometimes they get fixed in ways that make them stronger than they were before. This is impossible. No, Steve said. This is human. On Alex Thompson's crippled ship, the young lieutenant commander sat in his ruined bridge, his broken leg splinted with pieces of torn metal, and planned his next attack. Around him, his injured crew worked to restore weapons power. They had been hurt badly. They would carry scars from this battle for the rest of their lives, and somehow that made them feel more ready to fight than ever before. 6 hours later, both fleets hung dead in space. The battle had torn through ships and lives, leaving wreckage scattered across the asteroid field where it had all begun. No one had really won. Both sides were too damaged to keep fighting. Captain, Maria Santos floated in her damaged command chair aboard the Iron Resolve. A piece of flying metal had cut a deep line across her face during the last exchange of fire. The wound would heal, but it would leave a permanent scar to match the burn marks on her arms. She didn't mind. Each mark told a story. Admiral Collins, we're getting a signal from the Cathari flagship, her communications officer reported. The young woman had her left arm in a sling, but she was still working. Put it through, Admiral Steve Collins replied from his position near the main screen. He had taken shrapnel in his leg an hour ago, and he leaned on a support beam for balance. Fleet Commander Zixthul appeared on the screen. His crystal body was cracked in several places, and the light patterns flowing through him were dim and uncertain. Human Admiral, we must talk. I'm listening, Steve said. Not here. not through communication channels. In person. Your damaged captain and my damaged self, on neutral ground. Steve looked at Maria. She nodded slowly. The asteroid field. There's a large rock about halfway between our fleets. Big enough for a small meeting room. We will prepare a temporary structure, Zixthul agreed. Bring your medical specialist. We have questions. 2 hours later, Captain Maria Santos walked through an airlock onto the surface of a space rock that had probably been floating in this system for millions of years. The Cathari had built a simple shelter from crystal panels. Air recyclers hummed quietly, and the artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth normal. She was not alone. Dr. Lisa Parker walked beside her, and behind them came Jake Morrison. All 3 humans bore fresh scars from the recent fighting. Lisa's head wound had healed into a jagged line. Jake's burns had formed thick dark patches on his arms and chest. Maria's new facial cut was still red and angry-looking. Inside the crystal shelter, 3 Cathari waited. Fleet Commander Zixthul stood in the center, his body showing the cracks from recent battle damage. But unlike the humans, his injuries were already beginning to heal. The crystal fractures were filling in with new growth. Dr. Velnan was there too, along with another alien that Maria didn't recognize. This one was smaller, with very intricate light patterns moving through its crystal body. This is Scholar Nexiel, Zixthul said. She studies the nature of life and survival across the galaxy. The scholar stepped forward, her crystalline eyes focused on the human's scars. May I examine your wounds? Dr. Parker nodded. What do you want to know? Everything. How you survive. How you function with permanent damage. How you become stronger instead of weaker. For the next hour, the examination continued. Scholar Nexiel used crystal instruments to scan the human scars, measuring their thickness and structure. She asked endless questions about pain tolerance, healing processes, and psychological adaptation. Your scar tissue is indeed stronger than your original skin, she finally announced. This should not be possible, but the evidence is clear. The collagen fibers are denser, more organized. Told, so, Jake said, but more importantly, Scholar Nexiel continued, your mental patterns change when you are injured. Your brain chemistry adapts. You become more focused, more determined, more dangerous. We call it getting angry, Maria said simply. Dr. Velnan leaned forward. But why? What evolutionary purpose does this serve? Dr. Parker smiled. Because we evolved on a planet that was trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, accidents. The humans who survived were the ones who could take damage and keep going, who could learn from their injuries and become harder to kill. Your regeneration is beautiful, Maria added, looking at Zixthul's healing cracks. But it has a cost. You forget the lesson as soon as the wound heals. What lesson? The fleet commander asked. That you're not invincible. That the universe is dangerous. That you need to be tougher than whatever is trying to hurt you. Jake touched his burn scars. Every mark on my body reminds me of a time I almost died but didn't. Every scar is proof that I'm harder to kill than my enemies thought. Scholar Nexiel was quiet for a long time, her light patterns cycling through colors the humans had never seen before. We have made an error, she finally said. What error? Dr. Velnan asked. We assumed that perfection meant healing completely, that strength meant returning to an undamaged state. She looked at the humans again. But these creatures have found a different kind of perfection. They become stronger through surviving damage. Fleet Commander Zixthul's body flickered with what might have been understanding. You are saying that their scars are not flaws, but improvements? Adaptations, Dr. Parker corrected. We don't heal back to what we were. We heal forward to something tougher. And the psychological effect? Dr. Velnan asked. Maria touched her fresh facial scar. Every time I look in a mirror, I remember this battle. I remember what it took to survive it. I remember that I'm still here when I could be dead. That makes you more confident in future battles, Scholar Nexiel observed. More than confident, Jake said. It makes us know, absolutely know, that we don't give up, ever. The meeting continued for another hour. The Cathari asked about human history, about wars and survival and the long, slow process of becoming a spacefaring species. They seemed particularly interested in how humans dealt with loss and permanent change. Finally, Fleet Commander Zixthul stood. "We will withdraw our fleet." "Just like that?" Maria asked. "We came here to cleanse what we thought was a flawed species. But we have learned something today. There are different kinds of strength. Different ways to survive. Your way is not our way, but it is valid." Dr. Velnon added, "We will need time to study what we have learned, to understand the implications." "And Earth?" Jake asked. "Your world is safe," Zixthul replied. "We will not return to cleanse anything. Instead, we will observe, learn. Perhaps there is wisdom in carrying one's wounds as honors instead of hiding them as shames." As the meeting ended, Scholar Nexiel approached Maria one last time. "May I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Do you regret your scars? Do you wish you could heal as we do?" Maria thought about this for a moment, running her finger along her fresh facial cut. It would heal badly. It would leave a permanent mark that would never fade. "No," she said. "These marks are part of who I am now. They're proof that I was here, that I fought, that I survived. Why would I want to erase that?" The scholar's light patterns shifted to what might have been wonder. "Your species is very strange. Thank you," Maria said. 3 hours later, the human fleet watched as the Cathari ship slowly withdrew from the system. There had been no formal surrender, no treaty signed, just an understanding between two very different forms of life. Jake, Morrison stood on the bridge of a rescue ship, watching the alien vessels disappear into faster-than-light travel. His burns had settled into permanent scars that pulled slightly when he moved his arms. "Think we'll see them again?" Dr. Parker asked. Her head wound had stopped bleeding, but the scar would be with her forever. "Probably," Jake said. "But next time, they'll know what they're dealing with." Admiral Steve Collins limped onto the bridge, his leg wound properly bandaged but still painful. "Captain Morrison, you'll be interested to know that Earth Command is promoting you for your actions during first contact." "Thank you, sir, but I didn't do anything special." Steve smiled and touched his old Mars mining scar. "You showed them what humans are made of. That's special enough." As the human fleet began its long journey home, each ship carried wounded crews who would bear scars for the rest of their lives. Battle marks that would remind them forever of the day they met aliens who thought humans were broken. The day they proved that sometimes being broken just means being rebuilt stronger than before. Dr. Lisa Parker made the final log entry for the mission. Personal note. Today we learned that healing isn't always about returning to what you were. Sometimes it's about becoming something that can't be broken the same way twice. The stars watched silently as the scarred human fleet headed home, carrying their wounds like badges of honor and their scars like armor that could never be removed. And, in the vast emptiness of space, both species began to understand that there were many different ways to survive in a dangerous universe.